Hi, Peter Jones, Chartered Surveyor, author and property investor, and in this short series of videos we've been looking at a simple but often overlooked process which will help us to plan for success and which we can use to plan for success in 2018 so that 2018 is our best year ever, specifically our best year ever in property. Because the simple truth is that unless we start to plan for success in 2018 now, the chances are that most of us are going to have just another mediocre year, and we do not want that. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way if we just follow the 5-step process. So as a quick reminder, here is the process for achieving success in property. And so far we've looked at the first 2 steps of the process, which are deciding on what we really want and setting goals to achieve what we really want. We looked at 6 things that we need to think about when we set our goals. But as a quick summary, let me tell you all 5 steps. So step number 1 is deciding what we really want. Step number 2 is setting goals to achieve what we really want. And as I say, we looked at the 6 things that we need to think about when we're setting our goals. Step number 3 of the 5-step process is to make a plan to achieve those goals. Step number 4 is to take action on the plan. And step number 5 is to regularly review progress and to tweak as necessary. Now in this final video of the series we're going to look at the last 3 steps of the process, which is making a plan, taking action and reviewing progress. And we're going to look at how I can help you to use this simple 5-step process so that you can plan for 2018 to be your best year in property ever. Now when we've set our goals, the next step in the process is to make a plan to achieve our goals. Now I hope you have set your goals. If you haven't done it yet, do make sure that you set time aside to do it. It's absolutely crucial. Moving on to planning, prior planning might sound like an obvious step, but again it's surprising just how many investors and would-be investors jump straight in and start buying property without clearly thinking it through and without even having a basic plan. Often it's a case of any old property will do. So it's not surprising that many of those who I meet at a later date often regret their first purchases or their first few purchases. Now it's true that property is very tolerant, and this might not be a terminal mistake, but it can seriously impact on the overall return that you're going to receive going forward in the future. And it can greatly increase the amount of time that an investor takes to actually achieve their goals. It can also produce sleepless nights and unnecessary stress. Now even a cheap property is a relatively expensive purchase, and so before we start spending our money, we owe it to ourselves to carefully plan so it's spent efficiently and effectively. And even more so if we're going to be using JV partners funds and money from the bank. Often the problem is that an investor doesn't have the experience and knowledge to know exactly what they should be taking into account in making their plan. After all, we don't know what we don't know, and I fully understand that being confronted with a blank piece of paper, or more likely nowadays a blank tablet or a blank PC screen, can be very daunting when we sit down to make our plan. So where do we start? Well, there are so many different ways that we can use properties, so many different types of properties, so many locations in which we can invest, and numerous strategies and techniques for investing in property that I don't intend to try and cover all of that here. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to property investing. Every plan will need to be individually drafted and tailored to meet each individual property investor's needs, aspirations, skill level, preferred strategy, location, and of course not forgetting their individual financial situation as well, of course. But the most common problem I see, made by experienced and new investors alike, is not being able to express their financial goals as property goals. Doing so would enable them to plan to achieve their financial goals through property, and it would make the whole process a lot more simple. The difficulty with setting financial goals in property is that if you don't know what you can actually achieve from property, how can you actually quantify it? And that's why you'll see investors who set goals like, I will buy 10 properties by the end of the year. A great goal, by the way, and if you go out and work on that goal, I'm sure that you will have some success. But the thing is, what does that actually mean in practice? Does that mean 10 properties which are unencumbered, bought for cash, or does it mean 10 properties with mortgages? Does it mean 10 properties which are let to single families, or does it mean 10 HMOs which are multi-lets? Does it mean 10 properties which relate to professional tenants, or 10 properties to tenants on benefits. It could mean absolutely anything. Is it 10 properties in central London, or is it 10 properties in Scunthorpe? I think you can see what I'm saying. It's very easy to get distracted by almost vague, meaningless goals like that. But I do have a solution to this, which I'm going to tell you about in a moment at the end of this video. Now, I suggest that you do sit down and write a specific plan with action steps which will help you to achieve your goals. That's absolutely crucial. But I suggest that you keep it simple. I would almost go as far as suggesting that you just keep it to bullet point actions rather than trying to devise an in-depth business plan. Why do I say that? Because the danger is that the planning can become the end, whereas actually the planning is just a means to an end. We don't want to get so distracted and so bogged down in planning that we don't actually go out and take the actions. So I would look at your goals and make a very specific plan with very specific action points. So for example, if your goal was maybe to buy 3 buy-to-let properties in your local area in the first 6 months, think about what you'd need to do. You'd probably want to go onto Rightmove, so set aside time every day to go onto Rightmove to look for properties. Set aside 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day to ring agents, to make appointments. Set aside your Saturday morning to perhaps do 10 viewings, for example. And if you bullet point it like that, you'll make far more progress. Now, once we're through the step of producing a workable plan, the next stage is to take action on the plan, preferably vigorous and persistent action. Why vigorous? Well, vigorous because if we're targeting big goals, and if you think back to an earlier video, we should be setting big goals, and if we're targeting big changes in our lives, then we're going to need a level of action which is commensurate with this. And why persistent? Because the biggest problem is that despite our good intentions, all of this enthusiasm can fizzle out to nothing, and it can happen frighteningly quickly, especially if we either lack belief, which we thought about in the first video, or if we get distracted or too busy in other areas of our lives, or if a problem comes along and there are bumps in the road, which inevitably there will be. That's why I said right at the beginning in the first video in this series that ideally we should identify 3, 4, maybe even 5 super reasons why we want to succeed and why we want to make sure that 2018 is our best year in property ever. If those reasons mean enough to us, then they will keep us motivated and on track no matter how tough the going gets. And let's face it, it would be naive to assume that everything's going to be plain sailing. Of course it won't be. And that, of course, is another advantage of having a proper plan. If we need to pick ourselves back up if we have a bit of a bump in the road, or if we start to drift and if we're wondering how we're doing, we can refer back to our plan and make sure that we're still on track, or at least identify how we get back on track. And that's why the last step of the process is so important. With number 5 in the process, number 5, step 5, is to review our progress and to tweak as necessary. Going slightly off track from that time to time is probably inevitable. There are so many distractions and so many opportunities that we can pursue once we recognise them that we need to keep an eye on how we're doing and make sure that we review our progress on a regular basis just to make sure that we're heading wherever it is we want to be heading. So if we think we're drifting or if we think we're going in the wrong direction, then of course we can adjust course early on to make sure that we do get back on track. So that is the 5-step process, and I know that when I outline it in a video series like this, it may sound simple because it is relatively simple, but I know that simple though it is in principle, it can be hard to follow. So how do we get around that? Well, that's a great question, and one which I've given a lot of thought to over the years, particularly around the whole area of setting goals in property. And that's why I've developed a unique and highly valuable tool which I know is going to help you to set your property goals and to plan for and to attain your best year ever in property in 2018. Having spent years trying to work out the best way to set property goals and then plan for their achievement, and knowing the difficulties involved, I've put together what I consider to be a breakthrough tool, a customisable eBook template which takes you step by step through the whole process of property goal setting, through to preparing a plan which will really work. I've called it Goal Setting to Property Success in 5 Simple Steps, and it does what it says on the tin. In it, I'll show you how to set your goals, how to frame them financially, and then crucially, how to state them in terms of property, something which many investors struggle with, how to choose the right strategy to achieve them, and then how to prepare a plan which you can take action on to make sure that you do achieve your goals. And because most of us would agree that life needs to be holistic and well balanced to an extent, it'll also take you through how to set goals in other areas of your life and not just property and finance. If you're serious about achieving property success in 2018 and genuinely want it to be your best year in property yet, I'd love to help you. So I'm going to leave a link below this video. I'll also, if you're looking at this on YouTube, I'll leave a link in the description. Or you can just go to my website, www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk, and click on the link for Goal Setting to Property Success in 5 Simple Steps. And there you'll find full details and you'll be able to order and download your copy. Now, Goal Setting to Property Success in 5 Simple Steps is available as an ebook to download now, which means you can start planning now, and it's available for only $34.97, or it's available as a hard copy in a manual in a 4-ring binder for only $59.97, including postage and packing. Plus there's a full 60-day no quibble, no questions asked money back guarantee, meaning that you can order with full confidence. Plus, if you order now, I'll also give you 2 special spreadsheets which I developed personally, which will allow you to take stock of where you are financially and help you to plan and achieve financial success in the future. Successful people know that the key to success is having defined goals, adopting the right strategy, and having a detailed plan to achieve those goals. These are the steps I'll take you through in detail so that you can hit the ground running in 2018 and look forward to your best year in property ever, and not be resigned to yet another mediocre year where all your hopes and dreams are long forgotten by the end of February. So please go to my website www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk and click on the link for Goal Setting to Property Success in 5 Simple Steps, and allow me to help you through the step-by-step process which will allow you to achieve more than you thought possible. If you'd like me to talk you through how to set your property goals and then help you to put together a plan to achieve them, then this is the resource for you. So go and order your copy now and download it now and start planning ahead, or order the hard copy and I'll get it in the post ASAP so you can start planning for 2018. Here's to successful property investing, and here's to a wonderfully prosperous and successful year ahead.